Welcome to the Lovers Lounge podcast, where we talk to experts and other guests on topics related to love, relationships, and sex. I'm your host, Tina Love, and on this episode, we have LaKanya Manuel. LaKanya is a fully licensed marriage and family therapist with over 14 years of experience in the field. She provides individual and group therapy to mainly adults. She has an interest in premarital counseling, postmarital, and loss. Of course, grief, divorce, separation from children, deployment, all of that. So, welcome to the show, LaKanya.
Thank you for having me.
Girl, I'm just glad to have you. You know, I've been listening to your podcast with your sister, Sonia. And yes, it's been good. So I'm so glad to have you on the show. I did all kinds of research on you and everything. And so, yeah, good to have you on the Lovers Lounge.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. So I understand you've been doing some yoga and you're trying to get certified. So did this happen? Have you gotten certified yet? Or where are you with the yoga journey? What's going on?
Oh, it's definitely a journey. It entails way more than I thought it would,
Uh-huh.
and I'm learning so much about the history and philosophy of yoga. It's way more than just the physical, and so it's going to take a couple of months just to go through all the different theories and founders, and plus the physical aspect of it, and then we have to do a practicum and all that. So it's very detailed, and so probably by next year, the beginning of next year, I should be done.
Yeah, well, good. I was doing some yoga, what they call booty yoga. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, booty
Mhm.
yoga. So it's kind of a, I know people are probably listening and going, booty yoga, what's that? Uh, it's interesting because it's, well, you know, but I'm just gonna say it for the folks that's listening. It's like a combination of tribal dance with traditional yoga. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, there's some gyration that goes on and, shaking and going on. But I
Mhm.
tell you, it is so freeing and so relaxing. And talk about strengthening the core. That,
Mhm.
oh my goodness. And
Yeah,
learning, yeah.
yoga. Yeah, you're burning more calories, and yoga is definitely more exhausting than people think. I think
Mm-hmm.
people think it's just like a slow. No, there's some power yoga. There's trap yoga even now. So you can definitely start and get up a sweat
Oh,
with
yes.
yoga.
Absolutely. Because that control and that core and holding in those poses. And then when with booty yoga, some relaxing and holding all at the same time. Listen,
Mhm.
listen,
Mhm.
you're going to have a workout. Okay. Let's just say that. All right. So, but what are the benefits though to yoga? Just in case people are listening, you're getting trying to get certified and everything, and you wouldn't be
Mhm.
doing it if it wasn't some benefits to it. So, go on, girl, tell the listeners what they can gain out of participating in
Um,
yoga.
Definitely peace.
Yes.
Centering yourself, grounding yourself in the midst of all this chaos going right now,
Okay.
especially right now. We all need that, and so even as far as people who have anxiety or trauma, it helps kind of keep you centered and balanced, help you control your mood. It decreases blood pressure. It regulates heart rate. There's a host of benefits to it, physical and mental. And that's why I enjoy it so much.
I'm
I
telling
can
you.
come home from the day of work and just get on the mat and feel completely better afterwards.
Yes. And I just the breathing and the breath control is so good. And then
Hmm.
not to mention, girl, you flattening that stomach and you're toning up that buttocks. Girl, listen. Folks listening, you got
I,
to look into it. That's all I got to say.
and I am on a Operation Dunk journey. That's what I call it. Hashtag Operation Dunk.
Yes, 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 yes. So, and then you can sing. Yes, I've heard you sing a few lines during the podcast with your sister and other people. So, how long have you been singing, Lakanya? It sounds like you've been doing something in church. Yeah, did you start singing in church,
Oh
girl?
yeah.
Were you in the choir?
Oh yeah. That's right. You already know.
Right, right, right.
I was forced to sing in the choir when I was a little girl. Um, probably at the age of 6. Yeah, 6 is when I joined the choir, and um, I just love music. So it went from singing to me playing the piano and the clarinet and the violin and
Hmm.
reading music and, going to be in band and all that stuff. And so um, that's actually what my mother wanted me to do. She wanted me to be like a band director, music teacher.
Oh, she did. Oh my gosh, we have so much in common because I played the clarinet and
Oh,
and the violin. And why does my
wow.
sister want me to be a choir director? I'm gonna have her listen to this podcast specifically. Yes, she thinks that I should be a choir director. I'm like, no, but at any
Wow.
rate, yeah, yeah. And it was funny because I heard you say that you would have auditioned for Drake's background singers. Was that
I
something? Tell me about that. How did what?
I never did it, but like I was at work one day. This was like, that had to be about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he had an ad out saying that he was looking for some backup singers. And I
Mm.
was like, oh my gosh, like I don't have any kids. I'm not married. I could go just travel the world with Drake and because I've never wanted to be in the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
I've always liked the idea of being in the background and not, I just feel like that's so much enjoyable and like hearing the harmonies. Um, and so I just didn't do it because I really wouldn't want to do it with a rap artist. I would
Right.
rather do it with maybe like a neo soul type of person.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. All
yeah.
right, all right. And you say that you would like to write lyrics. So are you good at writing songs? Have you done that?
I've never actually written songs, but I have about 15 books of poetry that I've had
Ah.
over all the years, and so I easily can turn them into songs, and sometimes I will like put a beat to them. Um, so I love poetry. My minor in college was English creative writing, so I just love the idea of poetry and spoken word.
Mm. All right.
Um,
Now I'm gonna have to
hmm
have you write something on love. I bet you already have though. You probably have written
Oh,
something on
plenty
love, and you could
books
just
and books and
yes,
books of
yes,
them.
yes, yes. You have to one of the shows come back and give us some of your spoken word on love. Oh yes, girl. We can just give some snaps. Give some snaps. All right. So now on to the real reason why I called you on the show. I want to talk about people's mental health right now and how
hmm
everyone is being affected by the things that are happening today. I mean, we've got COVID-19, the pandemic. We had stay-at-home orders, people being quarantined. Schools are now performing virtually. There's just like parents never thought they'd be helping their child with homework and schoolwork and stuff like that. We've got racial injustice. I just heard that there was a black man killed in Wisconsin in front
hmm
of his children. I
Right.
don't know if you heard about that. My God. And then
Oh yeah.
Breonna Taylor, in Louisville,
hmm
Kentucky, people knocked down her door and came in and killed her. And she's at home, in her bed. Ahmaud
hmm
Arbery, we saw him. We saw him. The world saw Ahmaud Arbery. And then, of course,
hmm
George Floyd. And, it's just all kinds of stuff that we're facing right now. Not to mention,
hmm
we're coming up on an election and there's so much writing on
Right.
that, you know,
hmm
um, just in the middle of really dark and evil times right now, unfortunately, and it's
hmm
affecting all of us. So I just wanted to talk to you about it because I know that you focus on PTSD and you're talking with, families and everything. What led you
hmm
to this field? What led you to this field or this career and this type of work?
I've always been the friend that people felt comfortable talking to. Even as a little girl, people would say, "Oh, it's so easy to talk to you," or "You have a listening ear." Um, and so, even from middle school, I joined what we had called the peer mediators. It
Mm-hmm.
was a program where we counsel, like did peer support, peer mediating, and helping our friends, um, helping our classmates when they had altercations and conflict. And so I did that in middle school and also in high school, um, and that really um, encouraged my my interest in studying like the human mind and human behavior.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And so lately, what do you find is one of the most, I guess, popular issues that are coming up with clients as of late, families that you work with, individuals that you work with? Like, what is what is the continuous theme that you're seeing right now with people?
It has always been communication.
Okay.
Like everything for me goes back to communication. Um, it can be finances, but it's how you communicate and how you have conversations about your finances. That's the problem. It's not that you have money or don't have money. Um, sex. How are you communicating about sex?
Right.
Did you let your partner know, what you were expecting?
Right. 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 Right.
Um, so for me, everything goes back to communication.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, because I've been doing this show ever since the beginning of this year, and I can't tell you there is not one show that I do that communication doesn't come up because you just everything has something to do with communication, and it's interesting though, Lakanya, you laughing, but for real, we really don't know
Yeah,
how to
I
communicate.
know.
We really don't
You're
know how to.
right.
We just,
Hmm.
I don't know, like I remember a communications class. I graduated in, well, I ain't gonna tell y'all because I'm old. But anyway, I remember there was a communications class, but I think it was more dealing with sort of maybe business communications or more dealing with like broadcasting, radios type communications. But I'm just talking about learning how to relate one to another. Do you find that we just really don't have those tools?
Absolutely. And I always ask people, do you not know how to communicate or you're not communicating effectively? Because you're talking, you know, but are you saying what needs to be said so they can understand you and comprehend you
Mm-hmm. Because we may be,
in a way that they can comprehend?
yeah, yeah. And do you find that you have to like teach people how to listen to each other in their communication?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Active listening is a skill. And a lot of people don't know what that means. That means eye contact. That means um, being quiet and not interrupting. That means um, giving them your focus, not on your phone while they're talking. And a lot of people just don't do that. They feel like they can multitask. And multitasking sometimes takes away your listening ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really. Yeah. And I think sometimes we think that multitasking is such a great thing, but what I find is that when we
Hmm.
start trying to multitask and we call ourselves doing all these things at the same time,
Hmm.
a lot of them aren't
Yeah,
getting
something
done correctly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm. Something's
Mhm.
gonna go. Something's gonna be neglected when you're multitasking.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, recently with everything that's going on and all the pressures, I think I read and I've heard people say that the divorce filings right now are at an all-time high. What's your take on this, Lakanya? Why do you think that this is?
I honestly believe that people don't know who they married.
Mm,
And when you're stuck in that, not stuck, but because it could be an enjoyable thing
right.
when you're with somebody that you want to be with. But I think that people are with people, and now that you're spending so much time with them, you're learning things about them that you never knew.
Right.
You're seeing things that you never thought that they would do or say or you know feel a certain type of way about. And so I think there's a lot of relearning going on right now in couples, and what they're learning, they're not liking.
Mm-hmm. And so some of them are wanting to throw their hands up,
Hmm.
but instead, what should we do in these times when all of a sudden, we're learning about the differences of each, with each other, like, I'm a neat person. He's not a neat person.
Hmm.
I like this and he likes this.
Hmm.
He wants to rear the kids this way, and I think they ought to be able to do
Hmm.
this. Like, how do
Yeah,
we?
that's a big one.
Yeah. what do you say to these folks right now that are running into these issues? It's like, you're right. They are finding themselves now bumping heads because they're having to deal with each other more. So instead of throwing in the towel, what do you say to these couples right now that are dealing with this?
Well, first I would say embrace the differences. Differences doesn't mean wrong or bad. That quote of opposites attract, you know, is there for a reason. There's something about that person that attracted you to them. But what we also need to do is have our own boundaries or have our own things of what we need in a relationship. So even this person that has these different ideas or thoughts from you, can they still give you what you need for a healthy relationship?
Mm, right.
And I don't know if we always communicate that with people in the beginning or ever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we actually tell people this is what I need in a relationship. This is what I'm expecting from a husband or a wife. I think we just go in thinking it's going to be roses,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that's how it was in the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, you have to work on that. In the beginning, it's new, so of course it's going to feel giddy and happy and blissful. But eventually, it's going to take some work, and some people just aren't willing to do the work.
Yeah. After a while, the roses, they start kind of getting a little wilty. And
Hmm.
you're gonna have to add some water or something. Maybe get new
Right.
roses or whatnot. But it's gonna take some work. It just doesn't just happen. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's also said
And I,
that, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was just going to say, unfortunately, some people just don't want to do the work,
Yeah.
and that's where I try to inquire more about. So why aren't you willing to give that effort right now? This person that you say you love from the very beginning, and you would do anything for them when it first started, and now you're not willing to give the effort to make it work and last longer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. It also makes you kind of wonder if when we entered maybe marriage or the relationship, what was our expectation in the beginning? I mean, really, did we really think that it was always going to be this rooftop experience,
right, right,
mountain high? There are going to be some valley lows,
exactly.
and it's all about those expectations. Yeah.
Hmm.
I was going to say also that many people right now who have mental illness are experiencing deeper levels of depression,
Hmm.
and those that have been, never even been diagnosed with anxiety and depression are experiencing this. So, why do you think this is, and what are your thoughts about this, Lakanya?
I think as humans, a lot of us don't like change. And what's going on right now has really changed a lot of people's way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's uncomfortable. And we don't like being uncomfortable. And that can lead to those feelings and those mood swings or that nervousness. Um, and I really want people not to self diagnose. Like, I really would encourage people to go professionally and get diagnosed, because I think sometimes we throw those words around, and depression and anxiety, like, there's time frequencies, there's durations that come along with that. It's not just I feel this way for 3 days, you know.
Right.
Um, and based with everything going on, you know, it can be situational. If you're not feeling some type of way right now, I would wonder what's going on with you.
Right.
You know, it's too much going on right now for anybody to be comfortable with going on. Um, so I would challenge people to get comfortable with being uncomfortable right now,
Right.
because unfortunately, this is our reality. And so to cope better with it, we have to become okay with things feeling uneasy right now.
Right. I can't tell you how many people I've seen, like on Facebook, different posts where people are up at like 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep. I don't know why. I'm just up. I can't sleep. Or,
Mhm. Mhm.
people saying, like, I'm feeling anxious. I know I've had, you know, heart, pounding, like, oh my God, wake up in the middle of the night, like, oh Lord Jesus, am I going
Mhm.
to die? Do I have COVID? I don't know it. Or, all kinds of stuff,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what can people do, to relax and to, get a hold on this? Because I see it all over the place, including myself. I've experienced some things. So what can
Mhm.
people do, to help themselves?
Well, first I would say go back to what you know works for you. I had to laugh at myself a couple of weeks ago because, like you said, I love to sing. I love music. And I know that helps relax me. And I was sitting here thinking, why am I not doing that right now? Like I used to sing and post videos about it and things like that and play music more frequently in my home. And I hadn't been doing that. I said, well,
Right,
let me start getting back to what I know works for me.
right,
So I would
right,
just encourage people to do that. If you know working out works for you and you can't go to the gym, still work out at home. If you know, I know a lot of people think it's crazy, but coloring,
oh
adult
yeah,
coloring books, or painting, do whatever is going to help you if you
right,
know that it helps.
yeah,
Um, but also, there's a thing called grounding activities where we stimulate our senses. So, like with our sense of smell, we would smell lavender or smell lemon or smell an orange to distract your mind from the anxiety or the feelings that you're feeling. Grounding, you can walk barefoot on the grass or um, on the cement, on the cold cement, and it kind of brings you back to awareness of yourself that you're okay. Um, Taste, some people would either suck on a peppermint or something to stimulate their taste buds to refocus their mind. And if you ever seen people who would like have rubber bands on and they'll just pop the rubber band,
mm-hmm.
that's another way of grounding yourself and bringing yourself back to reality. That I'm not back in there in that, whatever traumatic moment they're thinking of. I'm here. Today is Monday. I'm safe. I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. One thing that I've found that helps me, um, I've listened to some of the meditation apps, and YouTube.
Mhm.
YouTube has them. There's a Calm app. There's an Abide
Yep.
app, and so I put my headphones and I listen to those apps. And sometimes it's just water, that's playing,
Mhm.
or sometimes it's meditation that actually has some words. My favorite are the ones that have like Psalms. Psalms 91 is something that I definitely listen to a lot, especially now. And just like you said, repeating things to yourself. I shall live and not
Mhm.
die. I shall live and not
Mhm.
die. Repeating scripture and different things like that. And
Yep.
before long, your heart starts to, slow down. You start to relax, and before
Right.
you know it, you're off to sleep. So yeah, those are some of the things that I do anyway that work for
Yeah.
me. Um,
Positive self talk definitely is a helpful one. Whether it's
absolutely.
like you said, whether it's scripture or affirmations, it's so helpful because your mind and your body is listening to what you say to yourself.
That's right. And so if you say some
Mhm.
crazy stuff to yourself, oh Lord, I'm gonna be sick.
Mhm.
Well, then you're gonna be sick.
Mhm.
But you need to
Mhm.
say that you need to confess things positive, and then
Right.
okay, yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Now you mentioned something about seeking help and people getting help and therapy. And
Mhm.
oftentimes I know in the African American community, and you be able to attest to this with us, we seem to think that going to therapy or going to get help from a counselor or a therapist is something wrong.
Mhm.
We don't need to be going to them, but what's your thought about this? But obviously, you are a therapist. So, what do you say to these families, that have this stigma against, we don't need to tell nothing that's going on in our home or whatever. What's, going on here stays here, what do you
Mhm.
say? What do you say to that?
That just the same way that we take care of our hearts or our blood sugar levels or our feet. We'll go get our nails and toes done,
Okay.
but we won't take care of our brain. Why is that?
Right.
You know? And that's why I try to encourage people like that. Your organ, that brain is so important. It affects so much other parts of your body, of your life. So why wouldn't we take care of that?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that you're crazy. It doesn't mean that something's wrong. Sometimes it's more of a prevention. Sometimes therapy is so we won't get to a certain place. So let's go ahead and handle it and talk about it now.
Right. What is therapy? Like, how can you explain to somebody who has not ever been to therapy what they might experience if they were going as an individual, if you were going as a couple, or if you were going as a group?
Hmm.
How would you explain to the, to the listeners, okay, you're going to make an appointment and here's what you're probably
Hmm.
going to experience in the first 2 or 3 sessions.
I would simply say it's a conversation. It's a conversation of us processing your thoughts out loud because it is something so significant about you hearing yourself say how you feel out loud. And a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do that. You know, they keep everything inside or, they live alone and they don't have anyone to talk about it with. Um, and so to have someone that you can have this conversation with, this dialogue with, to kind of unpack some of those things and process and say, wow, I really do feel this way about that. I didn't even realize I thought that until I said it. To me, that's what therapy is. It's so important for you to understand yourself. And it's funny because people come to therapy like to deal with other people, but so much of therapy is about how you're dealing with yourself.
Right. Yeah. And you think people think that therapy is, somebody telling you what to do. But instead it's
Hmm.
not. It's not somebody telling you what to do, but what would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are some like life coaches. There are some counselors who will give you like instructions or like assessments. I'm sorry, assignments to do.
Right. Assignment.
But I am very big on the fact that I am not going to tell you what to do because I'm not going home with you. I can't make the decision for I cannot make the decision for you. I
Right.
want you and I to have a conversation to figure out what's best for you.
Right.
Because what I would do is going to be based on my morals or my beliefs or my mama. So how can I tell you what to do?
Right.
And I just met you a session ago, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I definitely, and I have heard that people think it's someone telling they'll say, how you going to tell me what to do? You don't know.
Right.
You haven't been through what I've been. And it's like, no, I have not been through what you've been through, maybe. And even if I did, our experiences, I'm sure, were different. So I'm not going to tell you what you should do. We'll talk about what's the best thing for you to do
Right.
together.
Okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
One other thing, Lakanya, that I'm also finding, and I really want to get your thoughts about, you know, when we're on social media and we're seeing all of this stuff. I mean, one day I think I opened up my messenger, and you know how people send all these videos and stuff, and one morning I woke up
Hmm.
and I opened up this messenger video and I saw the most horrific. It was just awful. And it started out my day. And I was just like, oh my God. It was a
Hmm.
video of somebody being dragged. I think it was during a protest, some kind of protest or something. And a FedEx truck came through and a person got caught under the wheel and she was just dragging the person. And I
Hmm.
said, oh my God, that was awful. And it's something that just, I could not get it out of my mind. And these are the types of
Mm.
images and things that we're seeing all the time. We're seeing, we saw George Floyd over and over and over and over again. We saw, Ahmaud Arbery over and over and over and over again. We are seeing all over the country these things happening. What is that
Hmm.
doing to us as a people? Is that trauma for us that we're seeing this over and over again? Is that affecting us?
It definitely
How?
is
Yeah, tell me about that.
trauma. There's actually a thing called secondary PTSD where, you weren't there, but if you saw videos of it or you weren't involved in it, but you saw the accident happen, um, it can affect you. It can lead to symptoms of PTSD, as far as like the re experiencing, the nightmares or the flashbacks, the avoidance. I've seen several people, they would try to avoid the scene of a crash because they remember it every time they ride by it.
Oh,
So they
yes.
purposely avoid, that's symptoms of PTSD. Being alert and being so cautious that You don't want to be in crowds, because you saw someone getting dragged during the protest. You know, those are symptoms of PTSD. It's not just military related at all.
Right.
It's police officers. It's EMS workers. You know, it's teachers. The things that they hear, DFAX workers. It can affect so many people, and us watching it on television and on social media is not helpful for a lot of people. Everybody's resilient level is different. Now, I'm
Mm,
not saying that everybody that sees it or watches it is going to be traumatized, but there are some people who it affects them very strongly.
mm-hmm.
And so you have to know yourself enough to say, okay, I can't watch this. I can't watch this 6 o'clock news, you know, until they start showing the more friendly stuff at toward the end.
Right, right. I can remember a time,
Mm-hmm.
my guy used to say, "You don't watch the news. You're not looking at the news." And I used to tell him, I said, I don't want to look at the news because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes it just destroys my spirit. Like there's nothing on the news really but negative stuff, and it would just drag me down. So for a long time I really wouldn't even watch the news. And even most recently too, with the pandemic, I try to balance how much I'm watching, because all of a sudden you're hearing 100, and we're up to 170 some thousand deaths, and
Right.
people are dying,
Yep.
and and then all of a sudden your heart beating fast. You're like, Lord, am I dying? It's just
Mhm.
it's too much. It's just too much. It can be.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way. And people used to fuss at me too, saying, you need to watch the news and you need to be aware of what's going on. And I'm like, I can't. Like, I know me enough to know I cannot watch it that frequently. Now, I will scroll on social media. I'll go to my Google Home and see like the top stories, headlines. And of course, when I talk to family and friends, I'm getting news. But to sit there and watch the news, mm-mm,
Right, right, right,
no.
right. Yeah. Now, also something else that's I know difficult for a lot of people, especially those who are extroverts, is this current situation has really made it difficult for individuals who are used to that socialization. You know,
Mhm.
I think TD Jakes has said it's been difficult for him because he is an extrovert and he thrives on that time when he's in that pulpit, and he's speaking to the large crowd and he's getting the reaction. He's able to do both because when he started he didn't have that, but he admits that this is difficult. I've got other preachers that I listen to all the time. They're admitting that this is difficult for them, and just people in
Mhm.
general. So,
Right.
what are your thoughts about this for these folks who are extroverts and really having a rough time because they're just not getting that? It's kind of fuel for them, so to speak.
Mhm.
What do you
Mhm.
think? Yeah.
I think that we should be thankful for technology because it does bring us somewhat closer to people. Um, as far as Zoom and different platforms like that. I know I've participated in an art class, several art classes
Oh
online,
yeah. Oh nice.
yoga classes. Um, I've been able to meet people through hobbies that I enjoy. Um, and then also there are still people who are meeting people outside, and they're doing it by social distance. People are dating. I had a friend that went on a date and they sat in their own cars and ate together. So I mean, it's still possible to be social. It's still possible to stay connected without getting too close, in my opinion.
Right.
But it's just going to look different for a while.
Yeah, yeah. And it's hard, I would imagine, for people who are living single and wanting to date and wanting that connection. And I know I interviewed somebody not long ago, young lady, Tammy Holland. She's from St. Louis, Missouri. She's in the media. And she talked about how, the pandemic has made her think more about death, not in a morbid way, but, just, you start to know that life isn't promised and that
Mhm.
you could
Yeah.
go, you know what I'm saying, and that
Hmm.
you need to enjoy life each
Mm.
day as though it's your last.
Right.
Tell everybody
Hmm.
you love them, because you never know. And so those are
You
the
never
types of
know.
things with, I think, for single people, it kind of makes you that reality kind of hit, and it makes people want to connect. and date and find that special someone. So yes,
Mhm.
yeah, it's really tough, I would think, for singles. And so anyway, and then parents. I mentioned earlier, school's just getting back in. Uh,
Mhm.
we thought that this virtual thing would have been over by now, and these kids would have been going back to school.
Mhm.
But the pandemic says no. COVID says no. So what do you say to these parents who are just struggling right now? They are getting to see them kids and getting to know their kids on another level right now.
And and I think that is absolutely necessary and awesome. I think that so many parents send their children to school
Mm-hmm.
and they really don't know how their children behave in school, but now they're seeing it.
Oh
And
yes.
not that all the children were so bad, but I think they really are starting to see the personalities and the real characteristics of their children um, in a school setting or somewhat of a school setting virtually. But I think it's a good thing. I think that parents really will now have the opportunity to spend more time with their children, those who get to work from home, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
I really have really just been trying to find the benefits throughout this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we supposed to learn from this?
Right.
And communication and spending more time with family and friends has definitely been one for me,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's virtually, you
Right.
know.
Right. Right. I think it's almost kind of like, God is resetting us. He's resetting us.
Mm.
Isn't that something?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
he's making us get back to some things that we neglected for a really long time. Because we've just been into
Mhm.
all this stuff, all this stuff out in the world, but he's making us get back to the basics. Remember when on Sundays we had, you know, families got together and had dinner all together on Sundays? You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Oh yeah.
You go to Big
Mhm.
Mama's house and everybody was at Big Mama's house. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's almost kind of like it's making us cleave to one another more. What do you think? It's
Mhm.
making our families cleave to one another more. Like we're starting to spend more time together. Get back to the basics, basically, is what I'm
I
saying.
yeah.
I feel
Yes,
like.
I absolutely agree. And I think it's so interesting when I hear people. It's almost like they feel like this is pulling people apart, but I really feel like this could bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
It's forcing you to talk more. It's forcing you to want to call people more. It's forcing you to want to interact with people um, socially. I mean, virtually,
Mm-hmm.
more than you ever had before.
Yeah.
And some people have even more time to do it now. You know, whether their job is working from home now, or unfortunately, if some are out of work, you know, they've been granted the opportunity to spend more time with their family members that they may have never gotten to do if it wasn't for this pandemic.
Went for the pandemic, yeah. And it's interesting, I'm a preacher's kid. Look on you,
Me too.
you okay? You gotta sound like you a PK. I thought so. I thought we had that in common too. But I'm a PK, and it, it's. I feel like this is also some of these churches where people were not going to church, right? And I feel like lately I've heard more people getting back to their reliance upon Christ
Mm.
or whatever
Hmm.
higher power you may have. But I'm just saying,
Right.
I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like people are starting to understand that there is a power greater than themselves, that this situation has made people kind of turn. And what does this say? What
Mm.
does it say in Chronicles? If my people who were called by my name would humble themselves and pray,
Humble
seek my
themselves.
face,
Mm-hmm.
turn from their wicked ways,
Wicked ways. Yep.
then will I hear from heaven and heal the land. And now it's almost kind of like this situation, although it's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate and it's crazy, it's kind of made people turn. I don't know if they turning from their wicked ways, but they turning.
And well, the thing about it, some of their wicked ways or the things they would do is no longer available to them because of the pandemic.
Right? Yeah. Interestingly enough. Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What are some
Yep.
other positive things that you can recommend for people to help them mentally, physically, spiritually in such a dark time as we are experiencing right now?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with this idea of going back to what you know, going back to the basics. What did you used to do before we had all the stuff that we could do? You know, were you drawing? Were you painting? Were you writing? Um,
Were you
what gifts do
praying?
you have?
Yeah.
Were you praying? Right.
Okay. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
You know, get back to the things that you used to do that were helpful for you that you've kind of gotten away from because we have so much to do. You know, we have all these, I got to go here, I got to go there. Well, now that we're not doing all that, what would be helpful for you right now? And so I would encourage people to do that, and I feel like that would help us mentally, physically, and spiritually, depending on what the activity is.
Right. Okay. Very good.
Get back to the core.
Get back to the basics. Go back. Go back. I think there
Mm,
was a
that's a
song. Yeah,
first
you know
song
what I'm
too.
talking about. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. That song, Go Back. Yeah, exactly. Um, so how can the listening audience hear more from you, girl? So how can they hear your sister? Now, the podcast with Sonya, that's your sister, right?
Yes, that's
LaKanya and
my
Sonya.
sister.
And you guys
Yeah,
are what, 5 years apart? Who's the oldest?
she's 5 years older, 5 years apart.
I
hmm
see. All right. All right. So Sonya's the oldest, and she's an educator. Is that right?
Yes,
And you
the first
are,
day of school today,
mhm,
and I'm the therapist.
you're the therapist. So y'all bring education and therapy together on your podcast. So tell everybody what the name of the podcast is and where they can hear it.
So it's called Sisters with a Voice, and we started about a year and a half ago. And my intention was to have my mother and my sister on there with me.
Mm-hmm.
Because we would get on the phone and do these three-way conversations, and I was like, "This is just funny. Like, do y'all hear this?" And so every now and then, my mother, she'll say, "Okay, I'll come on there this time." So we're gonna try to get her back on another episode. Just to have like the different generations of opinions and thoughts, and
Right.
it's just funnier with all of us, but. And of course to get that spiritual aspect because my mother is a minister. So,
Okay. Well,
but we're available on Google and iTunes and pretty much
Spotify.
everything.
Okay. All right.
We're on Spotify. We're on Anchor. We're on Breaker. There's about 10 different ones that we're on.
Okay.
And that I really love. The way that we do it, that it allows us to be on so many different platforms at once.
All right.
So,
Great. And social media, how can people follow you? Is there a website they can go on? How can they hear more from you?
if you search the hashtag therapeutically speaking, therapeutically speaking, you will find all my videos popping up. And on social media, I am at Miss on the Mic. MISSONTHE MIC. And that's on everything. That's Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube. I go by Miss on the Mic.
Miss on the Mic. Well, all right. All righty. Well, thank you so much, LaKanya. It's been a joy to talk with you. You know what? I need to get on that podcast with you and Sonya. We just need to just have a talk. Just need to have a talk. That would be fun. But at any rate, thank you for coming on the Lovers Lounge podcast. And it's been very informative.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for having me.
Yes, no problem.
I enjoyed it.
All right. And so, guys, I hope you all have enjoyed the show. Remember, the show can be heard on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And now on Thursday nights on TOKOVL Internet Radio at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time and 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget, you can get in touch with me by email at theloverslounge@yahoo.com. Thank you for listening to the Lovers Lounge podcast, where we talk to experts and other guests on topics related to love, relationships, and sex. I am your host, Tina Love, and until next time, peace. And of course, don't you forget, you have to have love.